So, Dr. Ed, I know one of the concepts I use a lot in my own research with incarcerated populations is thinking about being recruited into negative identities. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means, and is there a role that narrative plays in being recruited into negative identities?
Well, my book, Recalling Our Own Stories, is all about storytelling and how you can get recruited into negative identities. And in that small town that I was growing up in, Lawnside, New Jersey, I was always a big kid. At 12 years old, I was as tall as I am now, and I weighed only 10 pounds less than I weigh now. And the big boys would pick on me, and that type of thing, because I wouldn't fight back. I wasn't mature enough to fight back. But on the playground, I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do, and but I was scared. I was scared to fight because you get maimed. You get hurt really bad. I had a zip gun pointed at me one time, and those kind. So I didn't want to do that. But you give me a referee, I could fight very well, and wrestle and all of that from that standpoint. And but basically, but in terms of telling stories and things like that, I perceived that as them recruiting me into an identity that I didn't want to be, and I think that was one of, they may have seen some possibilities, but it was a small town. My dad was a pastor and very well respected, and so that may have been a problem. And I think my brother also was kind of picked on as well. And so it was those kind of. So basically, they were forming an identity. Now, one of the major identities that I did take, I couldn't read until I was in the 8th grade. I think that had something to do with it as well. If I was physically okay, and I could run too, pretty good, in that standpoint. But a lot of the kids I grew up with, the black boys, could not read, and so basically, then I didn't. Learn to read, and we used to have groups. We would read, and the teacher would call out the words, and that you could repeat them that way, and that kind of stuff like that. But I wasn't criticized for being academic at all as a kid, and so I was one of the boys from that standpoint. The same was in Sunday school too. All the kids that were in my Sunday school class, they could read and things like that. And then Mrs. Mary C. Still, the older lady. We used to call out the words for me, and those types of things. I would just repeat them, and she often said to me, she said, "There's something wrong. The reason that you can't read." She was talking about dyslexia, from that standpoint, and so. But part of it is that my parents were very well respected and academic. My grandmother was a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League in 1930.
Wow.
And my dad had 3 degrees and all those kind of things. And then he was a pastor, well respected. In the school system, he was the chair of the board of trustees for the school system, all of that. So that was the issue, and carried that around. But fortunately, I was a good athlete, and so and then in the school this Lawnside Public School wasn't segregated, but it was all black. And so the bad kids, when we would go to, we went to the white school beginning with the 9th grade, right? Because our school only went to the 8th grade and 9th grade, like your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior in high school. I would go there. Of course, I was an athlete. They loved me and all that kind of thing. And I didn't. So I left all that stuff behind from that standpoint. I was ineligible for track my first year. The reading issue. But I did learn to read in the 8th grade because I had tutoring and mentors, and I wanted to do that. But when I was ineligible for track, that really upset me. I said, this will never happen again. So that's when I started, taking seriously, reading and those kind of things. Let's see. Let me see. So that was basically the issue. But what was fascinating to me as well, when I went to Chester High School, and, they thought I was really smart, but I could. My parents spoke perfect English. Well, when I learned to read and things like that, I could write then. I could spell and learn to spell and those types of things. So that was no problem. And so they thought I was smart at Chester, and so, but the critical thing is that my freshman year, when I went to the University of Arizona, I got a football scholarship and went to the University of Arizona. My first semester as a football player, but as a freshman, I got a 2.7, which is no big deal. It's a B minus. It's 80 or above from that standpoint, and so that was very upper. But the coaches actually came to me and they said, Ed Wimberly, he said, we're excited, because you did so well, in the classroom. That's good for black football players. And he said that, that means you're a leader. And so basically we had black kids from San Diego, from Oakland, from San Francisco, and from Southern California, to come there. And so basically, that they said I was a leader, and so therefore I was the example for the rest of them. But also my roommate, who was a year ahead of me, and we roomed together for 3 years. He was a football player as well. He studied all the time, and he, his background was not necessarily similar to mine, but we just studied all the time. I mean, when I was in college, I said, I'm not going to mess this scholarship up. Now, there was a time, though, when I decided I was going to leave University of Arizona, and it was the second semester I was there, and we had to do what we call, in spring football, you had to do 2 scrimmages of 30 minutes, and scrimmages in terms of teams. So they put me in there. I did my 2, and they said I was overweight, so they put me in for a 3rd one. And I was very, very, very upset about that. And so I decided I was going to call home. Now I knew what my father would say, that because I wanted to come home. And so I got my mother on the phone. I said I knew that she was going to let me come home. So I got her on the phone and said, Mom, I'm coming home. She said, you ain't coming back here. So, oh Lord, I said I got to dig in now. But anyway, I was the only football player, white or black, that finished college within 4 years without having to go to summer school.
Wow.
And that's the story.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the story. But also, if you look at the program books that they had when we played different teams and things like that, I got the one for program books for it would be like 10 games. But anyway, they would put in there who you are, what your major is, and what you were going to be. And they said Ed Wimberly plans to be a minister.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, they're all there. So that's my story.
Thank you.